Hi, this is Mike Maloney, and in a video I did recently where I talked about the U.S. having to be twice as deep in debt when Obama leaves office than when he came into office, I talked about some of the reasons that it's going to be much harder for us to get out of the predicament this time versus the last time we were at very, very high levels of debt that were left over from World War II. I talked about how we were able to grow the economy faster than we were growing the debt, and that was because we started off with very, very low levels of private debt and corporate debt. And so it was much easier to expand under those conditions. But here's another reason. Government is this big, huge monster that consumes a large part of the economy. And this chart goes back to 1939. And as you can see, the number of manufacturing employees was much, much greater than the number of government employees. But the government grows at a far faster rate than the private sector does. And back in 1989, it crossed over to where the government has more employees than the manufacturing sector. So we were actually building stuff back here. It was a very large portion of the economy. And as you can see, since about 1980, it's been falling quite dramatically, the number of manufacturing jobs, where the number of government jobs never seems to stop growing. So that's one of the reasons that it's going to be much more difficult to get out of this predicament of huge levels of debt. And those levels of debt compared to GDP, the size of the economy, and those levels of debt compared to our ability to pay for it, the current government receipts, is going to explode during the next recession. But this is another way of looking at the data that I provided in that other recent video. This is U.S. private domestic non-financial debt as a percentage of GDP. And I showed this going from 53% up to 150%. So this is basically the same graph that I showed you in my other video. But here we have Japan going from 119% to 168% since 1965. And here we have Canada going from about 76% all the way to 210% of GDP. And Vancouver's real estate bubble is popping right now. And so they're in for a big surprise this time. You know, when the U.S. real estate bubble popped, that affected the U.S. and England and a few other places around the world. But Canada, New Zealand, Australia, China, their real estate bubbles just paused for a little while, took a breath, and then kept on running. So they're coming out of giant bubbles with these huge levels of private debt. So this isn't their government debt. Their private debt is more than 2 times the size of their economy. But this is not just a problem in the Western world. This is the entire world. So here's world private domestic non-financial debts. This is not including the banks as a percentage of global GDP. And what you see here is the entire world has gone from less than 90% to over 155% of GDP. This is going to be a global recession. It's going to be bad, and it's going to be very, very difficult to get out of. If you got anything from this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.